Over the first day and a half of free agency, we have seen 68 players sign new free agent contracts, whether they're returning to their team or going to a new team, for a total of $1.6 billion with a B dollars. Now, not all contracts are made the same. Chris Paul got a 4-year, $120 million deal, and Malik Monk got a 1-year, $1.7 million deal. Not all these contracts are the same, but all of these contracts have the ability to be rated, and that is exactly what we are going to do today. So I'm just going to start with the deals that I think are pretty good for some of these teams to be making. The first one is kind of going to be a low-key deal. Not a lot of people are probably going to be talking about this, but this Daniel Theis to the Houston Rockets deal for 4 years, $36 million. You look at this team, and now I don't know what they're going to do with John Wall, but if he stays on the team, you got names like John Wall, you have Jalen Green, you have Jae'Sean Tate, you have Christian Wood, and now you have Daniel Theis. You've got some other guys off the bench as well. You've got some other decent names. Kevin Porter Jr. comes to mind. There's some good players on this Houston Rockets team, and I think Daniel Theis is actually the perfect guy to play the center for this team. Not only because he's going to play well, but also he's probably not going to be on the team for the majority of that 4-year deal. I would almost guarantee that he's going to get traded once this guy hits over the age of 30, because Houston is not looking to compete right away. So all Daniel Theis is going to do is provide space, let guys like Kevin Porter Jr., let guys like Jalen Green and John Wall have as much space as possible, and see what they can get out of guys like Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., who are still young and could develop into something special. Now, some other good deals around the league. The Washington Wizards got Spencer Dinwiddie. I understand that the Wizards are probably not going to be good next year again, but Spencer Dinwiddie, a 28-year-old point guard, he could play alongside Bradley Beal probably really well, and it's a good deal for somebody who is looking to have a major comeback. Lonzo's deal with the Chicago Bulls, even though it's probably a little bit more money than he actually, based on what he's done in his career so far, $85 million seems like a little bit of an overpay, but Lonzo's still 23. If he develops into an all-star point guard alongside Zach LaVine, he kind of cancels out everything that Zach LaVine does not do well. Zach LaVine, I don't think, is a great defender. I don't think Zach LaVine is an incredible guy in terms of being able to be a general on the floor like Lonzo can. And I understand that Kobe White is on this team already. But Kobe White, I think we've seen enough to say that they need some help at that point guard position. They got really good help with Lonzo Ball. And I think one of the other moves that probably was a little bit underrated and it just didn't get enough talk, I guess, is this Doug McDermott deal to the San Antonio Spurs. I get 3 years, $42 million probably seems like an overpay for Doug McDermott, but you're putting a guy like Doug McDermott into a role where he's probably going to be like a Marco Bellinelli, or he's going to be someone in San Antonio who is going to take 5 or 6 3-point shots a game. He's going to be a capable defender. He's not going to shut anyone down, but he's going to be capable. He's going to be a good player for the San Antonio Spurs. Don't be surprised if he is one of the driving forces that gets San Antonio back to the playoffs next year. Now let's get into the deals that I think are really bad. Devontae Graham, $47 million from the New Orleans Pelicans. Why wouldn't you give that money, at least some of it, to Lonzo Ball? I mean, Lonzo Ball is not under 6 feet tall like Devontae Graham is. I think Devontae Graham might be 6 feet tall, but you compare him to Lonzo Ball. Lonzo can actually defend. Lonzo can drive to the hole better than Devontae Graham can. Devontae Graham is literally like a 5'11", 6 foot discount Stephen Curry. I mean, he's going to take a lot of threes. He's going to have every other night where he drops 25, 30 points. But then he's going to lay eggs almost every other night. And it's never going to be an average between the two. It's always going to be one or the other. So that's a really bad move for New Orleans. Dallas. Tim Hardaway Jr. Are we really sure that $74 million for Tim Hardaway Jr. is really what is necessary for Dallas to stay competitive? I mean, Fournier got $78 million. I'm not saying Fournier is better than Tim Hardaway Jr. or anything like that. All I'm saying is Fournier is younger by a year. Fournier has actually been a consistent player on playoff teams throughout his career, unlike Tim Hardaway Jr. has been. And Fournier, at least on a team like Dallas, can play with Luka Doncic a little bit better than I think Tim Hardaway Jr. can. I get Tim Hardaway Jr. is a better defender than Fournier, but I just don't really see the value in somebody like Tim Hardaway Jr. anymore. And I think 4 years, $74 million is a bit of a bad contract. And this next one probably is going to make some people upset because I understand that this guy is a fan favorite of everyone around the league, but is Alex Caruso really a $37 million contract kind of guy? Are we, I get it. He has those major plays that light up the highlights. But what does he do? If you were to tell me what Alex Caruso does, or if you were to ask me what Alex Caruso does, I don't really know if I could give you an answer. He can play defense. I don't know if he's a defender. He can shoot the ball. I don't know if he's a shooter. He can drive to the hole. I don't know if he's a slasher. He can make plays. I don't think he's a playmaker. I don't know what Alex Caruso does. And giving someone like him $37 million to already go to a guard-heavy team that already has Kobe White, like I said, they just got Lonzo Ball. They have other guys that are going to need the ball throughout the game, a la Nikola Vucevic, a la Thaddeus Young, probably during the game at some point. Patrick Williams is developing into a good player. Kobe White, like I said, is still on the team. He's probably going to be the backup point guard to Lonzo Ball, or Lonzo is going to be the backup point guard to Kobe White, however you want to do that. And then Zach LaVine is still on this team. So I don't really know what Alex Caruso is going to do for Chicago other than sit on the bench and get $9 million a year to do not a lot of anything. And now this last deal that I'm going to talk about, I understand this guy is 23 years old. I understand. I think he's probably the current version of Dikembe Mutombo. Just maybe not as well of a scorer as Dikembe was early in his career. If you don't know how good of a scorer Dikembe Mutombo was early in his career, you need to look that up. Anyways, Jarrett Allen. A guy who cannot shoot the ball. A guy who, I don't know what his free throw percentage is, but I can guarantee it's less than 80%. I almost would even guarantee that it's under 70%. Actually, I'm going to look it up right now. So last year, Jarrett Allen shot 70% from the free throw line, almost exactly. And in his career, he is a 69.6 free throw percentage shooter. I just don't get the move. I just don't get it. $100 million for a guy to score 13 points a game, to block a shot a game, to maybe grab 10 rebounds, who can't really play in crunch time of a regular season game because a lot of teams at this point are just fully fledged into the small ball lineup / everyone can shoot the ball kind of lineup. And Jarrett Allen doesn't fit into either of those categories. He's great. I understand that he's a great player. He's one of the few players in today's NBA. You know, when you compare him to guys like Mitchell Robinson or you compare him to guys like Nerlens Noel, other guys who are top shot blockers, he's in his own kind of league because of the fact that he does not foul a lot. He has not averaged 3 or more fouls in a season ever in his career. He's always been about 2 a game. So that's really good. I understand the value there. But when you're talking about a guy and his best trait is that he can block shots and not foul guys, I don't understand why that equates into $100 million. Now you bring in the fact that you just drafted Evan Mobley. What was he? 2nd overall, 3rd overall by Cleveland? How is Evan Mobley supposed to carve out his own role? Because Evan Mobley is also a 7-foot guy. I think he's he's either 230 or 240. So he's not going to be a banger down low. He's going to be a guy who his best trait is going to be probably defensively. I don't think he's going to come into the league shooting 35% from 3. If he does, then maybe this works with Jarrett Allen. But that kind of is what it hinges on, is maybe Evan Mobley could be a spacing 4. But you're going to be talking about a team who they're going to have to play Mobley and Jarrett Allen at some point together. That's too much value in 2 players to not play them together. And I just don't think it's going to work. In my opinion, this Jarrett Allen deal is probably the worst one that got signed in this free agency. And again, I don't want that to make it sound like he's a bad player. I think Jarrett Allen, if you put him on the right team with 4 guys who can actually do something with the ball, he's going to be a good player. But you look at the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're already a team who had position depth issues in the first place. They have two ball dominant players in Darius Garland and Colin Sexton. You would think that they would learn their lesson and not draft two guys, or not draft, but have two guys who probably are not going to be having the ball in their hands for a majority of the game. They're not going to be guys who can make a play in the post. They're not going to be guys who can dribble more than 2 or 3 times a possession. They're not going to be guys who can shoot the ball from 3. So I just don't understand the fit with Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley is really what I'm bringing to the table with this conversation. I like Jarrett Allen as a player. I think he's one of the best. Like I said, I think he's the closest thing to Dikembe Mutombo we will ever see, or we have seen, at least. It's just a weird fit. With all that being said, that's going to be the video for me. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave a like. If you didn't, make sure you leave a dislike. Any feedback from you at this point is much appreciated. If you have another guy that you think had a good or bad contract signing, let me know down below. I try to respond to as many of you as possible. Sometimes I don't because you guys flame me in the comments, and it kind of hurts my feelings. But I'll try to respond to you. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.